No, but I think it's never on, no? Generally it's not on. Okay. Okay. So, we saw until last time Sthiryam, right? That perseverance. Now the next one is Atma Vinigraha. Atma Vinigraha, as I said, is mastery over yourself, certain amount of self-discipline. Okay. Now, yeah. What? Yeah, 13 and 7, the last value. So, what exactly this Atma Vinigraha does not mean you have to be stiff and denying yourself and you just have to control. Unfortunately, a lot of these words, when a spiritual teacher starts talking about these teachers, they said, oh, you have to have, you have to control the mind, you have to kind of discipline. It adds so much rigidity, and then you almost feel as though you have, you're deprived of pleasures in life, you're deprived of lightness in life. So this Atma Vinigraha is a very beautiful word. It only means a certain amount of mastery over yourself. So what does it mean? There is a verse in Bhagavad Gita which talks about what is self-mastery. In these verses where we did the wise person, how the person behaves, right? So it's not something which I am saying, it's Gita which says. It says, Yada samharate chayam kurmunga niva sarvashaha indriyanindriyarthebhyaha tasya prajna pratishtita. Tasya prajna pratishtita means that person has a certain prajna, wisdom, which is always with the person, right? It's not like wavering. Sometimes that wisdom is available to you, sometimes the wisdom is not available to you. So who is this person who is well established in this wisdom? Bhagavad Gita gives an example of a turtle. A turtle is able to what? Spread, and at the same time what? When the time comes, withdraw. Spread, withdraw. Spread, withdraw. What does it mean with reference to our engagement with the world? We have to engage in the world. We can't just say, oh, the spiritual person has to be away from the world. Spread. Spread means engage fully. Do what needs to be done, right? Do it with enthusiasm, do it with dynamism, apply yourself the most, right? Now, when that happens, but it also is, there is a time for withdrawal. The time for withdrawal is a time that you spend some time on reflection, self-reflection. Think about where you're going in life. What is it that you want to really achieve? Are you close to what you want to be, not only as a professional or whatever, but also as a person? Okay, so that means there is engagement and there is reflection. That reflection requires spending time with yourself. Okay, no matter who that person is, whoever the person is, if you want to be good at one thing, you need to spend some time with yourself. Okay, you want to be a good scientist, you need to spend that time with yourself. You have to keep yourself away from that normal engagement that people have, because there is a certain amount of dedication, and that dedication if you're an artist, you spend time with your art, or you're a musician, you spend time with your music. You can't just be like every other person. There is that time that you need to as though withdraw and dedicate and spend time with whatever that you want to be. In this particular context, it means self-reflection. Okay, your time that you spend with yourself, how much time in a day We spend just with ourselves, not with what in relation to everything else. Just me. How am I feeling? What today, how was my day? What could I have done better? How I could have behaved slightly differently, where I could have been more engaged. It doesn't mean that you have to stop your thought process. The only, unfortunately, what happens is the whole meditation that the people talk about is almost like either just watching your thoughts or stopping the thought process. In none of these there is self-reflection. Right? If you're just blindly watching the thoughts going, you are not doing any reflection. Nor when you are stopping the thought, you are doing any reflection. Or in meditation, if you are kind of imagining that there is some kind of a divinity and that divinity pervades you and it is flow, is there any self-reflection in that? There is zero self-reflection. It's all imagination. Okay? So that means neither in engagement there is self-reflection, nor in the so-called techniques of withdrawal there is any, that we have come up with, there is any self-reflection. Just that 15 minutes you spend with yourself, you will hear a lot about certain things that that inner voice of yours which is able to tell, who's wanting to tell you things, but actually you have no time to listen to it. That introspection. Or even just how am I feeling today, and staying with that feeling without trying to say, oh my God, I can't be feeling like that and let me just get rid of it. Why? First acknowledging I'm feeling like this, and why am I feeling like this? What are the assumptions? Let's look if those assumptions are correct or not. Just that 15 minutes of that engaging and that withdrawal doesn't mean stopping the process. It just means spending time with yourself. Or even about Vedanta. If you listen to what Vedanta is saying in whichever class, spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes. What have I learned in this class? Without just the support of, otherwise even that happens, that any time you listen to Vedanta, it's either through tapes or through records or whatever, you don't spend time with yourself saying, hey, in today's class, what was something which I thought was important? Even that 5 minutes, which is independent inquiry, not with external aid. Very important. Okay, so that means even let's say you had a very important meeting. After that meeting, just that little time, what happened? What could I have said which I did not say? Or what I said which I could have put differently? That little bit, staying with yourself, spending that time with yourself and just talking, and just that is something which is, make that into a habit. I have kids class and I asked them, if I start talking about Ramayana and if I start talking about Krishna, they are not going to, there are all these cathedral kids, they have no idea about any of that and they probably will not listen to me. Okay? But if I talk about Steve Jobs, then they are all interested. Right? So I said, okay, I'm not going to tell you all these stories about whatever that you are not interested. I'm going to tell you a story about Steve Jobs. And this is truth. This is true. Right? So I said that his company was going public and there was this huge function, and where when your company goes public, the investors are there and they are going to buy shares, and how much you raise and what you get, it all depends upon what happens during this event. And just 5 minutes before that event, he was found nowhere. Nobody could find where Steve Jobs was. Ultimately, they all panicked. They said, oh my God, where is he? He was sitting in one room and he was meditating. Why? Then I asked the kids, I said, why do you think he was doing that? What did you think he would gain from that? So the kid said, oh, he would be quiet. Then he said he would be peaceful. Then he said he would have certain amount of centeredness, certain amount of tranquility. His nervousness would be less. The kids, I don't need to tell them anything. They figure out, they know. I said, so, okay, now, then I stretched a little bit more. So, how does being quiet help? You help them think through. You don't give them bhashan. You don't give them jnana. They have to figure out. They are so smart, they figure out. They said when the mind is quiet, you are able to think clearly. They figure out. I don't need to tell them. And I said how important it is for you to think clearly when there is such a huge event. And they said, yeah, it's extremely important. And I said, imagine if you have not spent that time and you are nervous, you are going to be nervous because it's a huge event, and you come on the stage with all that confusion that is going on in your mind, how will you perform? They said, no, you will not do well. So that means, imagine life is series of decisions. Or every decision that you make is going to have some kind of a repercussion on your life, either now, today, tomorrow, or 5 years from now. And if all those decisions are made with all kind of fuzzy mind, non-clear mind which is afflicted with all kinds of emotions, nervousness, anxiety, what is going to be quality of that decision? How important it is. In fact, more difficult situation, more you need mind which is quiet. But that very difficulty makes the mind all go in, lose its balance, and you make all that decision from that imbalanced mind. So you get deeper and deeper into non-clarity. At the very time that there is a challenge, you actually, when the mind is the most kind of in turmoil, that's the time that you really need to calm it, because that calmness is critical to your clarity. Okay, so therefore, this capacity for you to engage and withdraw, engage and withdraw, engage, that will improve, that very withdrawal for 5 minutes will improve your quality of engagement. Okay, so therefore this whole thing of everything being fast and multitask and all, this is a very, very, very destructive for your mind, You need that time. Recently I met this, in schools, for example, I learned that the fastness of figuring things out is correlated to your intelligence. In fact, all the new research is you need to quieten, because when you are little quiet, your quality, the depth of your thinking is a lot more. Imagine a child is not just is told, oh, you have to do it fast, you have to do it fast. It will create confusion. In fact, you have to tell the child, hey, you have all the time in the world. So what if you will figure it out 2 minutes? But if you have given it a right thought, and if you have cracked the whole process of knowing, and not just superficially figuring it out, that if you spend time in why is this, which takes time, and if you have stayed with that process, then it will stay with you for the rest of your life. This analytical capacity means you have to think deeply, and in order to think deeply, you need to Not just kind of figure out one little technique to get this answer, but to what? Think deeply and figure out all the different, steps that are involved. So therefore, this kind of and that comes when you have patience. And that mastery means it's not like, mastery doesn't mean that you have no negative thoughts. Please take out all these funny ideas. Mastery doesn't mean that you will always be. Now this is also one of the problem. People, every time I talk about Gita, and then people say, oh, your mind has to be like a Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna means they imagine that mind to be like what, in some kind of a constancy all the time. Doesn't happen. It's not required. Mind, its nature is to fluctuate. It will fluctuate. There is no possibility that in this class I gave this scenario, right? I told this, Surya said about this man who had sold his business and bought a horse. Is it in this class? Okay, so I'm going to tell you a story. This is what Surya makes his MBA students debate, because this whole mastery is if you don't understand Gita properly, it is construed as something which is totally not what it is. So the story goes, now you have to tell me if this is, I think I made you do this exercise. No? Okay. I'm going to tell you one story and you have to tell me if this behavior is desirable or not, and why not. Right? So there was this man he was living in a village, and he had business. Now any business you do, there are so many different variables that you have to take care of in order for that business to be successful, right? And those variables are what? Constantly changing, so you have to be really on top of things in order to align and then do well. So he says, now this is all just too much and all, it's too much work. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to buy one horse. So what? I reduce all these uncertainties and I just have one thing to deal with. What is that one thing? Horse. And I will use that horse to make money. Now, the villagers, you know how everybody participates in your life. So they looked at this man and what did they say? He's a fool, right? So the villagers said, oh, this man is a real fool. What stupid decision he made, that he sold everything and now he has bought this horse. And what is he going to do with this horse? Right? So then that man, what he did is, he kind of started some kind of a thing where some business with this horse. He would lend this horse and and he was making money. And he started making a lot of money. What did the villagers say? How clever he is. Look at this. Instead of dealing with all this, he's just now found one thing and then and this man says, who knows whether it is good or bad. Now one day his horse ran away. What did the villagers say? That he's a fool, look at this, he had done this, he made some money, but now the horse has run away, so he's such a fool. And what did this man say? Whether it's good or it is bad, who knows? Okay. Then after a few days, the horse came back with 5 more horses. So what did the villagers say? Oh, wonderful, look at this. I mean, this guy has just got luck on his side and look at this now. He had just invested 1 and he has got 5. And what is this man saying? Whether it's good or bad, who knows? Right? Then one day his son was riding the horse and the son fell down and injured his leg. What do the villagers say? All again saying that he's so stupid and whatever. And what does this man say? Whether it's good or bad, who knows? Okay, now one last thing. And then there was this that village was under one kingdom, and that kingdom had a fight with another king. So therefore, all the boys, young boys of the village were recruited to fight in the army. Now, because this boy was injured, he was not taken in the army. What did the villagers say? Bach gaya. He's so good, you see. And what did this man say? Whether it's good or bad, who knows? Now, my question to you is, this person who keeps saying, oh, whether it's good or bad, who knows? You want to be like that person or not? And yes or no, and why not? Is this a wise behavior? First of all, according to you, is this a wise behavior?
He hasn't stopped doing anything.
He is doing what he is still doing. I think it's too much inaction.
Inaction, he was
still doing his work. It wasn't like he stopped doing his business or anything. He was still doing it.
Acceptance of everything was the thing. Whatever is happening, let it happen.
He's leading too much
And
to
then
feel.
feeling not. I don't know how
He's not
proactive
taking
it was.
Not in charge.
Should be taking.
I think you have to do some amount of effort.
He worked out, so
He
it
still got
just
his
shows.
horse and he was still doing the business of the horse and he was still running a business.
He left everything to fate.
Yeah, I think he
He did that.
No, he
No.
negotiated with whatever the situation was in a quiet way.
He was accepting of everything that came
He
his
was
way.
accepting.
Maybe that's why he was happy.
moving on.
He was
So
accepting
that
on.
is
He
true.
was
He was
moving on. It
moving on.
wasn't that he
Because
stopped doing anything.
he was accepting. That
But
was
on
the
the other hand,
thing that he was
came and the other
accepting.
people thought it
So
was
that's
very-
correct.
It was also
Which
good.
is good.
It didn't harm him. He didn't care.
So at SP Jain there was this huge debate. Huge. Because there is this people said like, what is this man? Imagine you're like a CEO and you're just like, yeah, whether it's good or it's bad, who knows? You know. And he said it's totally unrealistic. Nobody can live like that. It's like when certain situations occur, right? When your son falls, you need to have certain amount of anxiety, certain amount. It makes you. It's very common. It's not like we are not robots. We are like programming ourselves to some kind of a constancy, where no matter what happens.
Son fell down that he did not take him to the doctor, or he
See,
did not
exactly.
He did all of that, right?
Who knows?
So
So that means absolutely. Whether you decide, absolutely. Whether you decide he did something right or wrong, it requires more information.
Yeah.
Please understand. Yeah, it seems like he did. How he did it? Did he take enough variables into account? How was his response? Right? So that means when he made that decision of moving away from business and buying a horse, how that decision was taken. I haven't given you any information about that. When the son fell down, he said whether it's good or bad, it's his attitude. But did he take him on time to the hospital? What did he do? Was he proactive? I haven't given you that information.
See, like you say, when he had one horse and he got 6 horses, he obviously must have put those 6 horses to use.
So all these are assumptions.
So basically, if you do your duty, whatever, and still accept your situation.
Now 1 minute, Rupa. Whether he's doing his duty or not, I haven't told you in this story.
It's not necessary to know.
It is necessary to know because the wisdom lies in not just, whether it's this or this, who knows, right? Because either you can use that decision for inactivity or you can use that same information to do what needs to be done. But I'm never giving you this information as to what he is doing. Do you see the nuance of this?
Yeah, but in the story it doesn't show, nowhere does it give the picture that he was not participating
Looks
in
like
this.
he was. The way
We
the
get the
events are
impression.
unfolding, it seems that he was doing what he had to do, his accepting the situation and doing what he had to do.
What he had to do is something that you don't really know. And the thing is,
Assume that things were working his way and they were unfolding correctly for him. So you presume that he has been doing it. I mean,
No,
also
okay, so
because
there's
of the
another
horse.
side to it. We presume this because what if suppose the horse had never come back?
see, what I'm saying is whether he had taken enough precaution to make sure that the horse doesn't run. See, there are so many things you don't know, and you're just assuming he's doing everything right.
No, he's not doing right.
No, 1 minute. Those who say that this is a right way to live, they are not looking into the nuances. This is what happens, that unfortunately people think that when you study Gita, you just have to begin to accept everything, but in that acceptance there is one part which is doing what needs to be done.
Like the turtle, withdrawing and
Yeah. And that part cannot be saying, oh, yeah, let me just. Sometimes, by either just accepting things, what will happen is you will not try enough. There are two paths to Karma Yoga. Karmani eva adhikarahate. The second is ma phaleshu kadachana. In that acceptance, right, accept what you really cannot change, but in order to live your life effectively, you constantly have to find ways to engage in the world, which is highly proactive. This kind of, let it be, if it is at the cost of your proactivity about what you need to do, and engage with enthusiasm, with certain amount of, and total elimination of emotion is also not possible. Different situations, the human mind is programmed in a way that different situations will bring different emotions. And to recognize those emotions and to deal with those emotions which are corresponding emotions is also wisdom. And not under this whole big spiritual facade of, everything comes, it's the same to me. It's not true. The day on which your company goes public and you make millions is not the same day as when you make losses. You can't say whether it's good or it's bad. Who knows? That will make that nobody can live with a person like that. There is celebration, which is part of living. There is grieving, that is part of living. Range of emotions is something that neither you can avoid nor you need to avoid. You just need to learn to manage them. Okay, so you have these classical forms of dance. There is one piece in which they show rasas. Rasas are all the different range of emotions that human being is endowed with. Okay? And living life fully and celebrating life is not creating some kind of a artificial stability which actually is aborting your capacity to enjoy and recognize those emotions. There is so much more you need to know about this story before you make a statement. Is this an appropriate behavior or not? Yes, certain amount of accepting what happens is required, but to live life effectively, it's you need a lot more inputs and a lot more understanding than just this superficial attitude of whatever comes, it's okay. Okay, any spirituality has to develop your mind further and further to use a lot more information to make right interventions in life. It has to have understanding of emotions. It has to have understanding of where is your free will. Are you using that free will appropriately or not? Or are you just saying, yeah, just that over acceptance makes you a passive person. Let it be. This is my fate. Yeah, this is my karma. Highly dangerous. Okay, so that means there are some pros in this story and there are some unknowns in the story, and there are some not so good features in the story, and you have to see all three. There is some positive thing. It's not like it's only negative. But the real situation is far more complex than what it seems like to us. Our life is like that. We have a pet kind of a framework, and we hold on to that, and we miss so much other information by sticking to that framework. Okay, so that expansion of your buddhi is what? Lifting it out of that one given framework, which maybe has some positive aspects, but also understanding that that may not be the framework. I need to supplement it or complement it with some other information, and then I have a much broader and a much more holistic way of living than just sticking to this given way of looking at things. And that changing the patterns requires a certain amount of reflection. This is what we call thinking deep. That is what we call Atma Vinigraha. Certain, because your mind is an amazing instrument that is given to you. You really need to challenge its ways of understanding things, and you need to go further in utilizing all its capacities. And once you have done that sufficiently, you can say, now the same scenario, now you use this information, and now what I have told you, and you give me you retell me a story where the person has used everything that Gita has said to live one's life meaningfully. You recreate this story. What would that person have done? What are the information that you will add to this story to make it a real dynamic way of living? You tell me retell the story.
When he bought the horse, he first found out the requirement, it was not of goods to be transported or...
Excellent, right? Before he makes that decision of I'm going to sell my business and buying this horse, what is he going to use the horse for? What is the profitability, right? And then what else he would have done?
He was seeing the horse in Helena. He could not, it was coming out
Absolutely, you have to do that. This, whatever happens is not adequate. You need to do all this, what factors are necessary before you make that decision of switching from your whatever business, and what is the prospect of that business, what is his skill set, and if he can hire somebody to actually improve whatever. All these needs to be taken into account before you make that decision. After he made the decision exactly. Now, once he had decided to buy that horse, what else? What could he have done?
Even seeing the horse's safety, the horse ran.
Exactly, absolutely. What measures did he? How is it? Nobody asked how did the horse run away. Had he taken enough precautions to make sure that the horse is absolutely. Then when those 5 or 6 horses came back, what could he have done?
We made a big stable.
How did the 5 horses come?
Where did they come from? Exactly.
It could have been wild, it could have been any,
Absolutely. See, it's like, we don't, this is what a spiritual person is. Go into details and look into things before just assuming, this is a right, this is just lovely, it's all acceptance. It's all nonsense. Become that subtler, in that subtlety is the success. In that application of mind is what you are going to ensure that you are really living life fully.
Things were going too well for this guy to anyone to refute it.
Now,
State.
exactly. Now, what else? So now, when the child fell, you again have to ask what
Was it his error?
was he leaving the child alone?
Was he speaking to
Was he?
something wrong with the horse.
Absolutely. We don't ask questions. We don't see what we have to do to ensure. You just assume so many assumptions which are without information. In that process, right? After having done it, then if it happened, then yes, acceptance. After having taken all the precautions, then yes. But you can't say, whatever happens and then, not do your part.
But strangely, in our new education system is everything is application. You go to see, earlier kids just mugged.
Absolutely. Now,
How, why?
absolutely. And this is where what Namrata is saying is absolutely right, because this is where I told, it's not like how fast the child can do 2 + 2 = 4. It's understanding why it is, exactly. Once he cracks that, he can do any addition. We don't spend time on getting into details and making the child explain why. All this fast. Okay, figure it out. Okay, whole life is like that. So much more rigor you have to apply to your whole being, and the decisions that you take and the precautions that you take, and even along with all these that I'm telling, also comes what? Emotions. That equation you have not even brought in. Imagine your child, if your child is having an accident and you are like, whether it's good or bad, who knows? The child needs what?
Emotional.
Your emotional support. The child, the minute the child sees you very concerned, the child understands that my mom or my dad loves me. I recently had a child who had an accident. Okay, and when that accident happened, the father's reaction to his wife was like, "Oh, don't panic because that will be so bad," right? But what was the child thinking? That when I'm so injured, my mom will be so concerned. That's healthy behavior. When the mother shows that concern and it is crying, the child feels what? That I'm loved. That my mother is not indifferent to my falling or not falling.
This reminds me of my mother's Gita class, where the lady says, "Don't be emotional, don't do this."
There is just so much of it happening in the name of Gita class. I keep telling this, I said, as it is, most of the adults,
Are they all accepting you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was on last Thursday. I
Huh.
sat in front, she made me sit in front. I'm telling you, looking at my watch, everything. I thought,
Who was doing it?
And that Bhagwan.
I know that.
Usha ji. And they said she's the best speaker. And I'm just thinking, really, is she the best speaker? Because I'm telling you, I didn't, I'm doing so bad in quality and I watch it and I couldn't get up out of politeness because I was the host. I was looking and watch every 2 minutes, every 2 minutes.
Even Priya's one, I almost got into arguing with her because and one of my friends, what she said about her husband, something. If I do, what is that?
The questions they were asking, I would think that my daughters would ask more sensitive questions. You know? And these women who will know for years, stupid things.
Absolutely.
You went to that class. I was being so bad, but anyway, they said Usha ji is the best speaker. I'm thinking, is she? They said she's the best speaker. She's the best speaker. I'm thinking, if she's the best, what would be the others like?
No, in the best in the gyan that they're propagating. Because they're all believing that and accepting it. No? They're all behaving also.
It's too much of themselves, I think. Each one had some vision of themselves.
I think one thing is like you just ask any psychologist what is a healthy behavior. It's not showing the appropriate emotion at the right time is not it's not healthy behavior.
Suppressing the emotions, which will
Yeah,
remain
it
when
is
you
all
become-
just have the child. In fact, in the modern society, one of the biggest problem that almost everybody has is lack of love. Everybody feels I'm not loved enough. Many people suffer from that. Now, whatever expression of love that you have, you even abort that in the name of, oh, I have to be sane with reference to everything. You will create a huge emotional confusion, huge baggage.
Child, yeah, I feel like that. You can imagine what a child would feel.
So one thing is extremely, of course, that now that the very thing of a certain amount of sadness is healthy. The child expects, right? If I have some injury and my mother is just like a stone, no judge. In fact, the child recognizes what is this. She doesn't. In fact, the child will interpret it as what my mother is indifferent, doesn't love me, and you think you are a big wise person.
You know in that movie that Arushi, that murder case, the mother Talwar was implicated because she showed no emotion. And
Absolutely.
they said that she's the one, because she's not crying, she's not showing any emotion, so obviously that was one of the things that went against her.
Absolutely, because it's unhealthy. This is the thing. It goes against the most basic common sense thing, and the whole spirituality is taken to what going against some most basic common sense behaviors, and it's elevated to something which is very evolved. It's a huge disservice. Anybody who propagates these kind of ideas are doing so much disservice to the society is just incredible. And people think that I'm becoming spiritually evolved,
Yeah, they believe it.
and they believe it.
People should have Bhagwan satsang and people have stopped and Rakhi to their brothers and things like that. It's like,
And I don't know how the women are like 50 and they see more life than any of us at 80 and they still living like
Absolutely. Life is lived with emotions. Imagine a life where people don't stop showing emotions to anybody else. We'll be robots. It is the most miserable life that we will have. If everybody is like, yeah, good or bad, who knows?
And if people feel loved, they're obviously more confident about themselves. They're more. It's like
The
the story of
only-
the child whose father was driving the plane. You know,
Huh.
this child was sitting next to a passenger on the plane, and the plane was going to turbulence. Everyone was like this, and people much. And this man was amazed to see this 8-year-old girl was not bothered. She was still coloring. So then he looked at her and said that, and she was traveling alone and she was confident. So he asked her, listen, aren't you scared of the plane? She said, no, I'm not scared. I said, how come? Because my dad's driving the plane. And then, no, my father would never get me. He'd take full care. So that confidence in her father was so much. But she said, nothing will happen if my father's driving. Like, so it's just that she
Yeah,
felt
you need to.
strong.
She felt strong about it because there is this whole thing of love. You need to show love. That's why I'm saying this, because so many people, even in Bangkok, they used to come to me. They go to some other satsang and this and that, and then the whole thing is detachment. You have to detach from the world and all. Then they come to me with a big problem and they said, you know what, I'm able to detach with everything, but I'm not able to detach with my children. I said, thank God. I mean, your kids need you, they need your love, they need your care, they need to feel that you care for them. And you need to not only feel, you have to show, you have to, because a lot of times you feel love, but you are unable to express it appropriately. So that means everybody needs not only emotions, but appropriate expression of that emotion. It's very much part of living a healthy life, healthy, meaningful life. Grieving is also extremely important. Anytime there is a loss, you have to grieve. You go and ask any psychologist. If you don't grieve at the time that there is a need for grief, what will happen? It will start manifesting in one way or the other. Either you will have physical ailment, or you will after 5-10 years you will get into depression and you will not know what has happened. Because all these depression, like many people said, oh, I feel depressed, but nothing has happened in recent past to have this feeling of depression. So that means depression is that. Then they said, oh, they can't correlate. So I said, yeah, this is so many things are lying unresolved. All the emotions unaddressed, unacknowledged. And they rule your unconscious, and you feel not comfortable, you feel low, you feel down. Okay. So therefore, if any spiritual person is giving you this whole thing of equanimity, and you have somehow reconditioned yourself, you have actually aborted a right functioning of the mind. But I need to balance it, right? Love, why then so much is talked about with reference to, what is then self-mastery? Self-mastery is generally when there is love, it also becomes a distorted love, and it results in control. The more you love the person, more you want to control the person, and you want the person to be exactly as what you want that person to be. That is what now to this love, which is a very positive thing, you have added your own distortion. What do you need to do? Do you need to eliminate love? No. You have to keep love, but you have to what? Absolutely. That you have to free your love from control. That is self-mastery. Grieving is healthy. When something major happens, you can't. Human heart is given this. Whole neurons are organized in a way that you will feel sad, and if you don't, there is something wrong with you. And as she says, the very fact that her son died and she had no emotion means what? That went against her. Okay, but if that emotion is something where you tell yourself, my whole life purpose is lost, I have nothing else to look forward to, me, poor me, you get into this victim thing, that is unhealthy. Do you see the difference between an emotion and need to express the emotion and the distortion that walks in along with that? So what do you need to correct is what? Not eliminate emotion. What do you need to do? Only correct that distortion. That I will be sad for 6. They say that that very deep loss, it takes about 6 months to recover fully. There will be days that you will feel little sad, that there will be days that you will have memory of the person. There will be days. And you have to let it happen. But if you get into this as, oh, my life is finished without this person, then you have to what? Gently correct this. Because if you start letting that feeling, my life is over, I will be lonely forever, all these, then next day you will think and you will reinforce that story building, which is what? Putting you in some kind of an extreme situation which is not based on fact, that you have to correct. But the flow of emotion of grief is, you have to let it happen. That discretion is something which will make you a very healthy, normal, evolved human being. We go from non-expression to just some mad expression and building stories without any control and believing in those stories. That's where the distortion walks in. The distortion doesn't walk in with emotion, remember that. Emotion is necessary. If you were not, supposed to feel emotion, you will not be given this range of emotions. The whole act of compassion comes because what? There is love in human heart. And it is actually making that love grow even more and culminate into something very beautiful which encompasses everyone. It's not being emotionless. Samatvam, oh yeah, whatever happens, good or bad. That is a very dangerous framework to get into. Okay, so this is Atma Vinigraha, means it has many different facets. Then you can say that, but in spite of my trying everything, and if it happens, then, when it is not within my control. So in that story, what is a good part? We also have to find a good part, right? Because the story has both sides. The good part in the story is what?
Lucky guy.
He managed.
Without getting too affected by the
Wonderful.
circumstance.
Absolutely. So that's a good part. Right? So that means that at that level, he was not totally he was just totally going in this huge roller coaster that we go through in life. That is a positive part. But in order to live an effective or a healthy life, you need much more than only that. You need that, but you need to embellish it with what? So many other things. Okay? So therefore, this is what we call Atma Vinigraha. Now all these is with reference to now what are you wanting in life ultimately? Is that the only end? Be a good human being? Most of the self-help classes or anything that you go to, that is the end, right? Becoming this good human being, that is the end. According to Bhagavad Gita, this is only a means to the end. That is the difference. Okay, so the next verse, which is chapter, I spend time with values because values is something that you have to live your life with these values. They have to be assimilated. In order to be assimilated, you need to understand all the nuances of these values. Otherwise, Gita leaves very vague ideas about what it is to be a good human being. So you need to spend time with it. So that's why I spend time with it, because it's important. Okay? Now, the next verse we will talk about, which is because Arjuna's question was, what is Jnanam and what is Jneyam? Jnanam is means of knowing and Jneyam is what? to be known. So all these values were what? No, it is means of knowing. It is jnanam. This knowledge is, and what is gneyam? Gneyam, he says in the next verse, Gneyam yat tat pravakshami yat gnatvam mrutamashnute anadimat param brahma nasattanna saduchyate. The ultimate gneyam, the to be known, these are only means of knowing. These values help you to know something. And what is that knowledge? Okay, he says, knowing which yat gnatva amrutam ashnute, you get immortality. What is this knowledge knowing which you cross what? Cycles of birth and death, and that is what? Anadimat param brahma. So that Brahman, which is now, what is this Brahman? That one reality which is the truth of the entire universe. That is ultimately to be known. According to Bhagavad Gita, the purpose of human life is to be alive to this reality. Because where you see many, there is actually only one. And what that one is, who is the real nature of Atma. That Brahman is not some third reality. Brahman is nature of I. So this is where you have to remind yourself of second chapter, where the nature of Atma was talked about. What is the nature of Atma? She sings this beautiful song, right? Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham Aham Shivaha. I am that, I am not just this Manaha Buddhi Ahankara Chittani Naham. Okay? Mind is what I think I am. Buddhi, the intellect, is who I think I am. Chitta, the memories, is what I think I am. Ahankara, the sense of I, which is what? In the thoughts which are connected to all these three functions, na aham. So that means our normal living is done with understanding that I am only as good as the mind, I'm as good as the body, I'm as good as the intellect, I'm as good as my memories, and I'm as good as the self-image that I have created for myself based on what? Certain thought processes that I have. I'm none of that, because they are all variables. They keep changing. Not only they keep changing, when I look into any one of them, it is what? Mithya. What is mithya? Forms within forms, within forms, within forms. Okay? Now I think that it is one body. One body is with how many parts?
Cells are billions.
Billions. Right? If you say one body, then it has two legs, it has two hands, it has what? All the different organs, sense organs, karmendriya, organs of action. All that I say is one body. Body itself has a dependent reality, because if I take out each part, what will remain as a body? If I take out hands, if I take out legs, if I take out liver, if I take out what? This one body is just a name, please understand. It is dependent on what? So many other parts. And if each of these parts I take out, what will remain as an entity called body? Nothing. See, you have to understand, it's a big thing. When you say body has parts,
So there is prana.
1 minute. When you say body has parts, when you take out those parts, body should remain or not? When I say body has parts, that means body is an entity, an independent entity, and it has many different parts. Right? Now, so that means if you take out those parts, there should be an entity called the body. If you take out all the parts, where is the question? Is there a thing called body? No. This is what we call mithya. Mithya, you have to understand. Mithya means that body has a dependent reality. We are not saying it is an illusion. Please understand. Without the parts, there is no body. So that means body is only vak arambhanam vikaro namadheyam. It's only a name for that given form. Then you say, okay, so body is only a name for all these different parts to put together. Now let me look into one part, which is, let's say, hand. This hand itself is what now? What is there? What constitutes hand?
Muscles.
Tissues, muscles, blood, water, bones. So that means now when you say hand has all what tissue, muscles, whatever, bones, blood. When you take out all of that, what will remain as hand? Nothing. Mithya.
So if something has a dependent reality, then it is mithya.
Absolutely. Anything which has a dependent reality, the whole definition of mithya is that which has dependent reality.
See, like marriage.
That's what I was just
Husband
thinking.
and wife. I'm just thinking of your
I
husband.
was just
wife.
saying, I was just
What is
analyzing
it?
it.
Where is the marriage?
Mithya.
Exactly. So now you know.
For Rajiv, without wife, there is no understanding. Everything has to have wife in the picture. So absolutely. So that is.
I'm not trying to project a image of Dasha.
No,
I'm trying to project clarity.
So I know how to make Rajiv understand. You bring wife in equation and then he
That's
understands.
a most
So that
difficult
is-
concept. So we figure that out.
No,
Life
you
is
figure-
easy.
That's why he's still in Gita class. He's still
Okay. So that means the body I thought was a reality, but actually when I take out the parts is not even there. So it's only a name. Then that one part of which the body is, which constitutes the body, that itself is what? Just a name, and it depends upon some other. And ultimately, where do you end? In cells, in atoms, in particles. Okay, so therefore this whole jagat is mithya,
What does
and
it
that
cover?
jagat includes what? Your body. But your body, it is, now I will come to your question, right? The body is not only, as Nirmala says, physical body. There is also what Vedanta talks about, subtle body. What is this subtle body? The subtle body is what makes the body alive. What is the difference between alive, the physical body still remains and you declare the person dead? What happens? And she says the prana leaves, right? So that means that there is a subtle body. While the body is alive, there is not only physical body, there is a subtle body. The subtle body gives life to this physical body, and that constitutes of what is a subtle body? It constitutes of the capacity. You have hands, but there is a subtle capacity of your hands to move, right? So when, let's say, if you have a paralysis, what happens? The physical body is there, the hand is there, the subtle aspect is lost. The capacity of this hand to move is lost. Okay, so that means, and then your eyes are there from the time of the birth, but the sight, what, keeps on undergoing change. By the time you're 42 or in your mid 40s, you have to start wearing glasses. So that is what we call subtle. The physical eye remains exactly as it is. The subtle capacities keep changing. So your subtle body includes pancha karmendriya, pancha jnanendriya. What are the 5 organs of action? 5 sense organs. Pancha prana. Right? What are these pancha prana? Inhaling, exhaling, circulation, then digestion, and then evacuation, excretion. Okay, so that is pancha prana. And then the 4 capacities, 4 aspects of mind, which is mana, buddhi, ahankara, and chitta. This all constitutes your subtle. Okay, and this subtle body also you are not. Okay, then who are you? That generally our definition about ourselves is only with reference to physical body and subtle body. Now somebody will add this whole concept of soul. Right? So there, according to this vision, we don't use the word soul or anything. We use one more body, which is causal body. Causal body is Karana Sharira. What is Karana Sharira? Karana Sharira is, in this life, you have performed actions. Some results you have experienced within this life alone. Some results are what not yet experienced. This is what we call Adrushta Phala. Those unexperienced results form Karana Sharira. Then you have to take what? Different physical and subtle bodies to go through what? Certain experiences which are not yet experienced in this life. That is also not I. That is Karana Sharira. Then who are you? You are Chit, Sat, Chit, Ananda, Shiva. This is the vision of, that is Niyam. Otherwise, your whole life goes in wrong what? Self-identity. You identify yourself with Sthula, Sukshma Sharira, and you end your time here thinking you are as good as Sthula, Sukshma Sharira. In any given lifetime, you figure out that I am not this Sthula, Sukshma Sharira, I am that Shiva. You have done your job. That is Jneyam. Jneyam is Brahman. I will end by saying, human life, human mind is capable of knowing this reality. If, here he says, Iha chet na veda iti mahati vinashti. Vedas say, if you come to this world and if you don't figure out this reality about yourself, it is a big waste of human life. You came into this world with this confusion of I to be only Sthula and Sukshma Sharira, and you also leave the world thinking I am what? Sthula and Sukshma Sharira. You have wasted human birth by not figuring out that Jneyam Vastu, which is Atma, is Sat Chit Ananda Swarupa.
Keep getting recycled till you figure this out.
Absolutely. You are going to continue to get it, continue to come back until you figure it out.
One more question.
Yes.
So, for me to get this liberation, the experiences that I have will be different to reach that state from birth and mother? Or we all have to have this? Is there a finite experience for everybody, or it's each one different?
Yeah. See, your life has had experiences based on your whatever is your Karana Sharira. Because your actions are different from my actions. Her actions are different from her actions. So everybody has different actions and different punya papa. Punya papa is the unaccrued yet unexperienced result of appropriate actions and inappropriate actions. And that whole thing continues till the time that you recognize that those are variables and they are different. Yours is different from mine. Your physical body is different from mine. Your subtle body is different from mine. Your causal body is different from mine. But there is one underlying reality which is Chit, which is never changing.
So
and that is not dependent.
So I might fall 5 times to understand that problem of mine. I keep committing the same mistakes.
Yes.
Maybe 6 times.
Yes.
But someone else might just take 2 times to.
Like Namrata, yes. You may take 5 and she may take 2, but ultimately, if you understand that reality, it is an unchanging reality. And it is one whole. And it is not mithya, it is satyam. So that's why the ultimate Gneyam Vastu is this reality about yourself. Brahman is not some external, some entity. You, Atma being, not Sthula Sukshma Sharira, but Brahman is something that you need to know in this life. Shivoham. This is a fact that you need to figure out in this lifetime.
So this is, once you figure that out, you just cannot be the same person you were.
But even if you want to figure it out, you first have to, you want to figure this out, and all this is something is not aligned. So that's why the whole Gita is about bring your whole life into alignment before you can figure it out. Otherwise you will never be able to figure it out. So that means your whole life has to all these, that's why Gnanam and Gneyam. If you want to know this reality, this means is non-negotiable. You have to work on what? Amanitvam, Adambhitvam, Ahimsa, Kshantihi, Arjavam, Acharyopasanam, Shaucham, Sthairyam, Atma Vinigraha. These are the means to know that.
So all these values, supposing I have assimilated some 30, 70, 60, whatever on a scale. So my next birth, will I be endowed with this, or am I going to start from zero?
No, you don't start from zero. You come, this is what we call samskara. Samskara means that whatever you have learned or whatever effort that you have made is not going to go waste. You start from the point where you left. You don't start from 0 point.
Where is that memory stored? I was told that it's in your...
In your Karana. No, Kundali, Bundali, we don't. There is no mention of Kundali in Bhagavad Gita. So that is, I think, another whole system. I don't know who is. I think it maybe comes under yoga. I don't know where it comes. I have no idea where it comes. But in the traditional Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita, there is no mention of Kundalini. It all gets stored within. What is the link between your present life and next life is Karana Sharira. Karana Sharira is the causal body. That is the link. That means you don't start from point 0, you start with, and this is why we see, right? Some people are naturally coming with a certain amount of composure. Some people come with, some. It's amazing when I went to this Gurukulam to study this whole thing. When the teacher was teaching Sanskrit, everything was like making sense much faster than anybody else, and I'm sure I had studied it who knows when, because people should really struggle with Sanskrit language, and for me it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. The Sanskrit grammar is supposed to be very tough, and it's like, oh wow, and it just like effortlessly it used to come.
It's the most precise language.
It's a most precise, it's almost like mathematics. Studying Sanskrit is like studying mathematics.
Germany, they're taking this because of software engineering.
Lovely.
They'll soon patent it
Yeah,
if you don't do something about it.
yeah. Unfortunately, we look down upon everything that is Indian. And those people are so smart. They are using, I was just telling Namita that, that here people are so afraid of calling me, because if they call me, then they are promoting what? Hinduism. But those people at Harvard, the professors are using so much from Vedanta to what? Do their management courses. And what? And they quote also. It's not like they don't quote. They quote. They are not afraid, because there is love for knowledge. So this is the state. Anything where we talk about our ideas which are so brilliant becomes fundamentalism. We are not even given that expression to talk. This is not only knowledge for Indians, it's knowledge for humanity. So, Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.